Welcome to the Background Noise Podcast, where this week we are talking about Matt Reeves' newest film, The Batman. This is not connected to any of the DCEU films. It's the start of a brand new series, hopefully, of Batman films. And so we're going to do a deep dive into that. I'm your host, Jack.
I'm Joe.
And I'm Joseph, and no, this isn't. This is the Batman 2022, not Batman the movie, or Batman that Begins, or not even Lego Batman. It's just the Batman.
Thank you for clarifying, Joseph. Much
Yes,
appreciated.
yes, no,
Batman, the is how he's entered into the phone book.
Correct. So before we deep dive into the characters and all the good and the bad of this film, going to get a bit of a plot synopsis for you.
Yeah.
So
Before we get the plot synopsis, just a reminder, because I started this last week, I am now streaming Pokemon games, and maybe I'll eventually do other things. But right now we're streaming retro Pokemon games on Twitch at twitch.tv/Professor Dracon. So if you guys want to check that out, you want to hang out with one of the hosts, maybe I'll get the other host for the podcast to join me, and we'll be talking as we're doing Pokemon stuff. That'd be kind of cool.
good stuff.
yeah, we'll sit down, we'll have a good time, have a few laughs,
Exactly. But in the meantime, so the plot of Batman. We start off with I believe the opening scene is the Riddler's first kill, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the opening scene is there's the mayor of the city gets back home. He's talking to his kid. He's talking about how the current campaign for re-election is going pretty badly, and then there's just this guy standing behind him, waiting for him to notice him, basically, which I did find was it was both intimidating but also kind of funny. And then the guy murders him. Then we cut over to Batman, who is in the process of Batmaning. We learn that he's scaring crooks. He's got the bat signal going up to confer with not Commissioner Gordon. He's not Commissioner Gordon yet. He's like
Detective Gordon, I guess.
Yeah, Detective Gordon. He hasn't been fully promoted yet. Talking with him about various cases, things like that. He's journaling because that's what Batman does.
Dear diary,
Dear diary, I am vengeance. And I mean, he actually literally almost exactly says that.
Pretty much.
a nocturnal creature. Oh man, Alfred brought in some little sandwiches.
Yes, he knows how much I love those little bat shapes.
Little bat shaped sandwiches. Oh man! All right, so Batman is journaling. He gets bat signaled about the murder of the mayor that just happened. Called in to investigate. He finds that there are riddles being laid out. There is clues that are being given specifically to Batman, like as in the form of cards addressed to Batman that have extra clues inside of them. And so over the course of the movie, we see the mayor is murdered, the chief of police is murdered. I believe the district attorney has a bomb strapped to his neck and is sent in to the funeral for the mayor. And there's a showdown there, and then Batman gets some more clues about what's going on. And we discover over the course of the movie that there was this drug bust that happened, but almost all of the people involved in the bust basically took a cut of that drug dealer's business afterwards, and also were generally dishonest and crooked people. And so there's this corruption in Gotham, and Batman's kind of realizing that the reason that things haven't gotten better is because all of the people in the system are corrupt and evil. And so we see the Riddler is systematically killing the various people who are involved in this, and Batman is trying to figure out who the Riddler is, try to figure out who the people are, so that he can bring them to justice, but also protect them from the Riddler's version of justice. We also get a plot line. One of Catwoman's Catwoman is in the movie, and her roommate knows something about one of the guys that's killed, and she gets kidnapped. So Catwoman is working with Batman because of that, and so that's kind of like our B plot. And we also get we do not get a Batman origin story. We don't get a scene of the Waynes getting shot in an alleyway and the pearl beads fall to the ground in a very dramatic and traumatic way. But we do get details about histories of Thomas Wayne. We get and actually Martha Arkham, right? Is the mom's name? She was
Well, I think
from the Ark. She's from the Arkham family. I thought.
Well, when married into the Waynes, yeah, that's right.
that sounds right.
She's Martha Arkham, and she marries into the Wayne family. And if you know anything about Arkham in Batman, it's connected with people who are crazy. And ironically, the daughter of the family who owns the insane asylum herself goes crazy for temporarily. And that's one of the things that was covered up, that Wayne had covered up, or Thomas Wayne had covered up, and Batman finds out about this. And that kind of draws the history of his father into the corruption. And all of this ends up converging on Falcone, the head of the Falcone crime family. And we find out that all of these people are connected to him in one way or another. Thomas Wayne's connected to him. The mayor, all of these different individuals are connected to him. Batman catches him, but then when they catch him and bring him out, the Riddler shoots him. And then the Riddler turns himself in, goes to prison, says, and he actually, or not goes to prison, goes to Arkham Asylum. And then we kind of see the twist here, which is that the Riddler had spent the entire time thinking that he was working with Batman. He actually thought that he and Batman were on the same side and that he was pulling the criminals out of the darkness and Batman was taking them down, basically, is how he thought they were working through this. And he's distraught that that's not that Batman wasn't working with him, didn't even think of it that way. And then that turns into the Riddler. He's upset for a while, and then he realizes, oh, no, you forgot, you missed something. There's a piece of this puzzle that you missed. Batman rushes back to the Riddler's apartment to try to figure out what that is, except he doesn't figure it out in time, and because what happens is they set off bombs around the city to flood it. And then there is there's a one last showdown where everyone is congregated in this one safe house kind of building. And the Riddler has a bunch of his people that he's got following him on the various social media sites that are set up to take out the newly elected mayor and all of the other important people in Gotham City that are all congregated in this safe building. The Batman is able to take him down, and then he decide he is able to take them down. He stops himself from killing a guy, and then he sees people in danger, and he decides it's more important to help people that are in danger than it is to take down villains. The goal is to help the civilians. That's not to be taking down the criminals, basically. And this has been the longest summary that we've ever had of any of our movies, which is appropriate because this movie is 3 hours long. But I think that is all of the major plot points.
Yeah, I think that pretty much covers it.
Now we can go into the details.
Yeah, I do think it's funny because the whole reason we covered the comics last week was because of these were apparently the two comics we covered, Long Halloween, Dark Victory. Apparently there were a lot of similarities in those in the Batman movie, and I definitely saw those, of course, with Falcone, with Catwoman's relationship with Falcone. How early Batman is in his career, just things like that. You could definitely see the similarities. So I appreciated that. And I thought those worked. But I guess to really dive into it, we should probably start with the character of... Well, I guess before we even get to the character of Batman, I guess we can just do sort of general thoughts of the film and how it's different from the other films.
Well, the obvious biggest difference is that this is a Batman detective movie. Like other Batman movies are focusing on different aspects of Batman. This one is intended to focus on Batman as the world's greatest detective, which, I mean, it's different, and also I like that idea. I definitely like the idea of playing into that, because I think that's the most interesting element of Batman, is him as the world's greatest detective. So I definitely like that aspect of it.
I really do like that in terms of just the setting, I would say this is because Batman and Gotham are just irrevocably linked. Of course, I would say this neo noir setting. Well, neo noir is kind of like, but yeah, very much a modernized noir setting is just like, I would say the best part, because a lot of that is shown through the way everything's was the way Matt Reeves shoots everything and whatnot,
Mhm.
and just I think that does color everybody's performances too. Everybody's kind of got that. Everybody's kind of got that hushed whisper way of talking, except for Colin Farrell's. Was it
Penguin.
Penguin, yeah.
Yep. And I think just the fact that it was a lot better than I would have thought it was. It had some rough marketing to begin with, and it didn't help that DC Studios as a whole was kind of in turmoil. So that's why I don't think it got as much attention as it. I realize now that it kind of deserves, because it is very much just. I'm finding a hard time describing it, because it's very much its own thing in terms of it does all of the Batman elements very well. It's also kind of funny that they don't really call him Batman. Only the Riddler does call him Batman, but it's got its own style in terms of presentation, in terms of just really everything, like cinematic elements, writing elements, adaptation, how it handles the adapting these stories. I don't think anything really falls flat. It's almost the best Batman movie ever. It was it. Dark Knight ekes it out just a little bit, but yeah, I had a lot of fun.
Yeah. What I thought was interesting about it is, I mean, definitely you compare to other Batman films, it isn't really like your typical Batman film. Honestly, if you think about it, you could switch out Batman with, I feel like, another detective, and it would still work. It felt that grounded, where it's like it didn't really feel like it was super, like compared to the other films where it's very much Batman is definitely more fantastic and more of an icon, I feel like, in the other films, and definitely less believable. I feel like he is so grounded in this, and his gadgets, his gear, and all of that feels so much more real that it basically feels like a detective noir film that just happens to have Batman in it than it feels like just a Batman film. But I think that works. I think that's okay. It feels that grounded that it's like it doesn't really feel like a superhero film that I've seen before, and I thought that worked to its advantage.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. This is one thing I like. I definitely like I was gonna say, this is the most grounded. This is the most like, this is a real world that plays. It's not one of the magical worlds where you punch someone in the face and he's unconscious for 3 hours, but then he's fine. He doesn't have a concussion or anything or need to go to the hospital. Like that's kind of how a lot of these superhero worlds act. No. This is the kind of world where you feel that this is supposed to be as realistic as possible.
Right.
And there are as a person who loves Batman, I wish that there was more Batman in Batman. You know what I mean? It's like,
sure.
I wish that we could see him. It's hard to describe exactly what I want. I want him to be performing the fantastic elements, but not actually be fantastic, if that makes sense. Like the thing that Batman is great at is the striking fear into criminals because they're superstitious, because they're afraid of him, because they don't know what he can do, while he is just a human person, if that makes sense.
Sure.
That does. And
in
that case,
we do see a little
the first 10 minutes of the movie were your favorite moment.
Yes. Yep. That is, I did love, I love that scene. If I could do like a 10-minute breakdown of that scene where, we get the thugs are about to beat up some guy on the street for whatever reason. I think they're just thugs and they like beating people up. And I was thinking I was thinking Western the entire time that's going on, because we see Batman come like walking out of the shadows. You hear the thud of his boots on the pavement,
Practically
and
jingling spurs.
yeah, I could hear jingling spurs even though they weren't actually in the movie. And it's like, okay, the lawman is coming to town and he's about to lay down order, and then he does because he's Batman. Oh man, that was my favorite scene. Which, it's interesting that my favorite, usually your favorite scene isn't like one of the first scenes in a movie.
Yeah.
but it was great. I love that part.
Oh yeah, that works out really well and since this whole movie is just the Batman character study, that works very well into the, I feel like, the image that a lot of people see of Batman as this like terrifying figure. It's definitely how Zack Snyder sees Batman, sort of thing. But then you get kind of, he beats the pulp out of these criminals and probably sends one of them, like two of them, to the hospital, and then you see it, like, this part of him, it doesn't really get deconstructed, but it's sort of commented on. It's like, you just saw a guy beat the crap out of 6 other people and barely break a sweat. You'd be scared of him too, and the guy he's trying to save is just like as terrified of him as the rest. And then him looking up at that symbol too, it's like, oh man, it's like and then in his diary entry, I'm going to call it a diary entry because I don't know what it is, he's like, yeah, maybe I'm not having the best impact. I can't really tell if I'm having that much of an impact, because who would have thought that just beating the crap out of random people on the street and inspiring fear in a incredibly politically corrupt city was not the best move.
I mean, I can't think of a single flaw with that strategy.
Sounds fun to me.
Oh, it's definitely fun. Speaking of fun, the Batmobile. I'm so glad we've moved on from bat tanks and we've got
Jet power muscle
that was
cars?
my favorite scene. Yes,
that was a great version of that's exactly how I would have thought the Batmobile should work.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yes, actually, it looked the most like a car.
Exactly.
Yes, it looked like a mobile as opposed to a bat tank.
Right. Like, I could see them totally pulling off this car in a Fast and Furious film, and it would fit. It felt so much. It was one of those muscle cars they would drive in it.
Mm-hmm.
Just taking a bit more to the next level with the jet power. But yeah,
and the ability to ram through pure concrete.
Yes,
that was hilarious.
That was awesome.
Yes, yeah. Yep.
Now, what were we talking about? I'm sorry, I interjected all my favorite scenes. We were kind of just talking about general thoughts, and then we were going to go into all the other characters, right?
Yeah. So now, since we pretty much got a general idea of it and cover the Batmobile pretty well, I would say.
Oh yes.
Just jumping into the character of Batman as a whole, and what your thoughts were on this more inexperienced take.
Well, yeah, so it's definitely, actually I'm thinking about this. We see the inexperience in two ways. One of the ways that he's inexperienced is this, and this is my major criticism for the movie, which is, and it's a conditional criticism, because if this is the beginning of a series where we see Batman grow and get better over time, this isn't a criticism. If the movie is meant to stand on its own, then it is, because Batman does not save any of the victims of the Riddler, and he does not catch the Riddler. So now, if we're saying that, okay, he's inexperienced, he hasn't figured everything out yet, that works great, and that's a great beginning level. Also, it is a little bit annoying, but it works. It can work if it's part of a series. But we also see the inexperience on the Bruce Wayne side of things, because normally in a established portion of Batman storylines, Bruce Wayne is the face, right? He's the playboy billionaire who is there to act like a rich, entitled idiot in order to take away from the perception that there's a connection between Bruce Wayne and Batman. And we don't see that at all. We just see we see Batman being broody in his costume, and we see Batman being broody out of the costume, but we never actually see him put on the Bruce Wayne face. Which again, that works if it's because he's inexperienced and he hasn't realized that he needs to play into that role in order to, work both sides of things. So my criticism, all of my criticisms about this movie are in that hedged sort of thing of like, is it because is he inexperienced? Because is he ineffectual because he's inexperienced and that's part of the story, or is he ineffectual because the writers weren't actually paying attention to that? So
Sure, that makes sense. A lot of your problems could very well be resolved if his character naturally progresses in
yes,
the possible sequels.
yes,
That makes sense. Yeah. I definitely appreciated, like you already touched on this, that for a Batman in his second year does definitely feel that way. Since most of his gear and gadgets, he has very little of it. And what he does have doesn't really feel very Bat-like. Like, it's only at the end, like, at first, I feel like with his motorcycle, just a generic motorcycle. It's only at the very end when he finally drives it off, he gets sort of the bat ears on his motorcycle.
I saw those, yeah.
Yeah, so that was a nice touch. He doesn't have any batarangs. The only batarang sort of looking thing he has is just his chest plate, which he can pull off and use as a knife. That's it.
Yep. The bat knife.
Exactly. It's just a very minimalist setup. We don't even get his utility belt. We don't get anything like that. So
no shark repellent.
Right, unfortunately. So until next film, hopefully. But yeah, very minimalist approach, which I appreciate again, because he's early on. He wouldn't, even though he has the money, I guess he hasn't thought to really expand that way, because I guess he hasn't needed. He's thought mainly, set up the cave, set up the muscle car, and he's good to go, at least, and set up the bike, and he's good to go. But I also, in his fighting, you could definitely tell the inexperience, because about as much as he would hit, at least in the earlier fight scenes, he would get hit as well. And just definitely wasn't nearly as polished as we're used to seeing with the more experienced Batmans in the other live action films. So he seemed to get hit a lot, and he doesn't block every attack perfectly. So definitely adds on to that inexperience, and I think that makes a lot of sense. So I appreciated that, just because he's in his second year doesn't mean he's perfectly capable, Batman we've grown to know and love. So
yeah, but I think this was the perfect rookie Batman film. I mean, Batman Begins almost gives him a little too, I don't want to say too much confidence, but I mean, like you said, in terms of the big aspects of Batman, in terms of him being the world's greatest martial artist, he's kind of more more concerned with just, if he's got to throw his arm out while trying to knock a guy out, he will. If he's going to get hit, he's going to get hit. Partially because, I mean, this Batman's he's very moody, like you said. He's very moody. This is very much the Batman that's still out to avenge his parents as almost the sole motive for his entire being. And then in terms of being the world's greatest detective, I mean, he's not really. I think this may have been his first foray into being a detective. I mean, unlike in the Long Halloween one we looked at, like before, he's able to piece a few things together. In this one, really the only reason he gets involved is because the Riddler calls him out by name. In fact, in that the first scene, the first crime scene, I should say, two different meanings. But yeah, in the first crime scene, half the investigative team's like, why is he even here? It's just like, what is this guy's here? And he's like, yeah, it's because he left him a note. And then speaking of gadgets and whatnot, and in terms of like the gadgeteer genius part of his character, it's like, I really liked the stuff that he did have, because it seems like he doesn't have all these different things. Like, he doesn't have like the full Arkham game loadout or anything. He doesn't have like stuff to counter Mr. Freeze or like anti shark repellent or something. He's just got the bare minimum. He's got the knife. He's got the very cool spy recording contact lenses.
Yes,
those were very cool.
I really like those.
Very nice. And then he's got the taser gauntlet, and that's about it. Because up until that point, he's just the guy who beats people up and dresses like a bat.
Yeah. And that part I do actually like. I do like that he's it's because in a video game, right, you get to play through the game and you get to acquire all the gadgets, right? And so if we're seeing this as a movie universe, we can see him acquiring gadgets for specific problems, and then that problem comes up again in a later movie, and it's not a problem anymore because he's built the specific gadget, and it's a cool throwback. That would actually be a very cool thing to do if they want to do that.
And
Yeah.
in terms of this just being a standalone too, it really shows him just sort of like even if he does get these, and it's sort of this might be just be a thing that, oh, I picked up on it, so that means I'm special thing. It might have no backing to it at all, but after he confronts the Riddler, I think and realizes, oh, this guy thinks I'm on his side because I do what I do the way I do, sort of thing. It's, and kind of calls him crazy and realizes, maybe he's got a point. That is when he becomes the detective, instead of following like just slightly too late. Like, he doesn't save any of the victims. He doesn't save Catwoman's roommate, sort of thing. It's only when he goes back and starts acting like a detective instead of just kind of looking around and being reactive does he find a real clue, which is like he uses the original murder weapon, which is like a carpeting tool, to actually find that evidence. And then, I mean, obviously he's too late because the seawall breaks or whatever, but it's after he realizes I need to change things up, which I'll admit, yeah, it's a little blunt, because oh yeah, talking to the Riddler did it or something. I mean, it was probably a couple other things, but yeah, he needed to change things up, and that's the first time he uses his, which is that might be intentional. It might not be. It could just be, okay, he's got it. Well, he's this is just what the thing on his chest does, or it might be that he's finally using. He's finally becoming Batman instead of little Bruce Wayne Jr. I mean, no, little Thomas Wayne Jr. That's what it is.
Little Gavi Jr. What?
I had to throw it in there.
Of
Yeah,
course.
of course.
And the last thing, Joe, I'm trying to remember exactly what it was, but yeah, that change in that blunt change to him being the good detective, and then it is kind of a jarring change for him to be like, okay, well, I guess I need to start saving these people now. Which,
yeah,
it's a little sudden, but there's, I think, everything after him talking to the Riddler and everything playing out, having like the whole criminal empire kind of get taken down, and he realizes like, okay, my method's not working. Why don't we start this? Why don't we start doing this? And Matt Reeves uses what is it, light, very well in this. I know that's a very generic thing to say, but he uses light very well. It's kind of, there's the overt thing where it's like once he starts being the Gotham's protector instead of vengeance or whatever, the sun rises and all that, but then there's the flare at the end.
Yeah.
That's fair. I feel like that pretty much highlighted on Batman pretty well. I would say for Robert Pattinson, because everyone's trashed on him for years for the Twilight movies, I think it's, if it wasn't official before, it's pretty official now that I think he's moved on from that. He's proven himself to be a very good actor.
He's been a good actor
good in
for
this.
years.
Yeah, he was good in this. He was good in Tenet.
He's definitely not locked into only playing a broody creature of the night role. Oh wait,
no, clearly.
Hang on.
Wait, hold on.
He works well when he's either in black or in black and white, a la The Lighthouse.
I heard that's good. I haven't seen it, but
it's so weird.
I have not seen that yet.
Speaking of lighthouses and sea-related things, another standout performance, Mr. Colin Farrell under 20 pounds of prosthetics as the Penguin.
Yeah. if I didn't know that he had the credit for playing Penguin in that movie, I would have called you a liar for saying that was him.
He pulled a Christian Bale level performance nearly.
That
Or,
was
sorry, performance transformation. That's what
Yeah.
I meant.
Yeah, no, it was definitely kudos to Colin Farrell for looking completely unrecognizable as the Penguin, and on top of that, giving us just an excellent performance. So,
yeah,
quite good.
I
And I
feel
also,
like,
yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I feel like kind of like the Riddler, Penguin's really treated like a joke villain most of the time. I mean, if you're really into Batman and whatnot, oh yeah, this guy's a ruthless crime boss. But it's just like, oh yeah, it's the Penguin. He's got the cane and the top hat, right?
yeah.
But this works out and kind of gives him a little more depth beyond. Oh yeah, a little depth beyond. Oh yeah, he's the mobster, and a little depth beyond. Oh yeah, he's the funny guy. I don't know, the funny bird guy.
Sure.
Yeah,
it was just such a stat cast. I mean, I really didn't have any complaints about anybody. Like Zoe Kravitz, thought she was great as Catwoman. I really enjoyed her arc in this. Thought she and Batman worked off each other very well. Jeffrey Wright might have been my favorite person. Like, I don't know if they were my favorite actor in the movie, but his dynamic with Batman was like my favorite dynamic of any of the characters in this movie. Like, just their friendship and their understanding of one another and how they operate and how they work, and just almost the buddy cop dynamic. I absolutely loved it. And right, exactly. Absolutely loved it, and hope to see more of them working together in the future, because those were some of my favorite scenes. Just them trying to solve the case, and them just their trust and appreciation for one another, I thought was very cool. So I liked that a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and in the few scenes that he was in, Andy Serkis, I thought, did a very good job as Alfred. So
yeah,
another solid performance there.
My only complaint there is that I don't like that Andy Serkis is apparently old enough to be the elderly Alfred character.
Well,
it confuses me.
He's old now. We're getting old. He's like in his 60s at this point. Oh wait, no.
I know. I understand that, but the passage of time is annoying.
No,
fair
good point.
I can accept that.
The only one I think didn't really hit for me, and it could be because I liked this character so much in the original material this is partially adapted from, was John Turturro. I can never do his last name. Seymour Simmons from Transformers as Carmine Falcone.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's just like he was almost there as he needs to be there because he's essential to the plot, because he's the secret ruler of Gotham. He's the behind the scenes crime lord, but all we really get is kind of these occasional glances, and he's definitely not nearly as intimidating as he is in Long Halloween.
Sure. Yeah, I wouldn't maybe call his performance a standout performance in the movie, but I thought with what he was given, I thought he did fine with it. And I thought his character was, I thought it worked. And so,
I don't think that's a problem with the performance. That could have been a problem with the script not being properly balanced in his favor.
That's a good point. This was a long movie.
Yes.
When I got tickets, I did not realize it was going to be 3 hours long. It's like, oh man, okay.
That is most of my criticisms are all about, I want to see Batman being his coolest and best version of himself, and this is definitely an experienced Batman. But I do have a little bit of I enjoyed the movie the entire time I was watching it, but there are probably some pieces that you could tighten up a little bit. I feel like there are several long walking scenes, or several long scenes that include a section of walking that probably could have been shortened just a little bit, and maybe there's a few other things that we could tighten up here and there. Not that it is bad, just we're already pushing 3 hours, so we don't need any bloat, right?
Probably, but I will say, I would say the pacing I thought was very good. I know some people may not have thought so, but for me, it was a 3 hour movie that felt like 2 when watching it. So I
I'll
thought
agree
most of
there,
it worked.
except at the end. I don't know. At the end, I could kind of tell. Okay, it's kind of we had a little bit of Return of the King syndrome. I thought it was going to end in Arkham Asylum, and then we had the send off
Yep.
with Batman and Catwoman, which was fine, but it's a little bit like okay, here we go. Come on.
Yeah,
Sure,
yeah.
it felt like it took a little while to wrap up. I'll give it that. That's fair.
And that's literally all. That's the only criticism I have too.
Yeah.
It's yeah. Matt Reeves, chef's kiss. You did good.
Yeah, I think the only other major role we didn't touch on was, I guess, just Paul Dano as the Riddler.
Oh yeah, the Unabomber.
It's, yeah, the
Uniriddler?
4chan Unabomber.
Yeah.
I can't get over that part. It was I saw this with a buddy of mine, and it's just the minute he's I think the second murder gets live streamed, and it's like, oh yes, here's my followers watching. He's just like, oh god, we're gonna see like the public domain PogChamp emotes in chat, aren't we? It's like, oh, okay, I get we're in modern times, but I don't know, let's not do that. It just seems so out of place, especially since this is like I don't know, because it's such a noir-ish film that just seems kind of jarring. It's really funny, actually, in a jarring way.
It is actually interesting because the Riddler is not physically intimidating at all. Like, there is nothing about him where you're like, I can see him holding a cane with a question mark on it and a top hat fighting with Batman, which is something you see in like the animated shows a lot.
Sure.
Like,
Oh, yeah.
There is none of that. This is a person who is 100% about intellectual prowess and 0% about physical prowess, which he's not intimidating at all looking him in the face, but he's intimidating because despite all of that, he managed to pull off all of this elaborate, destruction of the city of Gotham. So I don't know if I like it or don't like it. It's kind of comical, but it's also like it's disturbingly realistic that something like that could actually potentially happen.
No,
sure. Well, I think that just adds to the grounded nature of the film.
Yes.
So I definitely thought it worked. I do kind of feel bad for Paul Dano, though, because I feel like he's become typecast as the creepy guy.
Oh, no.
Like, there was a movie he did with Jake Gyllenhaal and Hugh Jackman a few years ago called Prisoners, where he played just this creepy guy. And even in a film, like a Beach Boys movie that came out like a biopic, he plays Brian Wilson, and he makes Brian Wilson creepy.
Oh.
He just has that sort of demeanor, and it's just like, I wouldn't be comfortable having dinner with him for a long period of time. I feel like as soon as the appetizers hit the table, I'm like, check please. It's like,
hey man, I gotta run. It's not. I mean, I got a phone call. Your phone didn't go off.
I will have a phone call. Sorry.
Yeah, literally any phone call. I think that there's a call at the front desk for me.
Discord notification goes off. Oh, that's me.
Yeah.
I think he's more intimidating in the way, like, not as a character, but in the way he's shot. Like the opening. I mean, it is kind of funny that he's just standing there, but it's just, standing there menacingly. But yeah, he is pretty menacing because, yeah, I mean, it definitely helps that he's got this real serial killer vibe.
Yeah,
which is oof. Yeah, they you're right. It's very realistic, very realistic. They do that almost too well in terms of just. It seems very accurate, I'm afraid.
Sure.
It's not like I consume a lot of serial killer related documentaries or whatever, but it's like almost like him forming a cult of personality is spot on. That just makes sense. Yeah. Especially in a place like Gotham.
He has that energy about him where like most people don't like him, but there are a few people that really like him, and all of them are crazy.
It's almost a better Joker than Joker. You take out the riddles And it's like just this guy who's like, oh, he talks up a big game about, oh, the city's corrupt and we're doing something about it. But then at the very end, he's just like, yeah, no, I just want to cause destruction and chaos and stuff like that. It's, well, when I say Joker, not like Joker is the character. I'm talking like 2019 Joker. When was the Joaquin Phoenix one? It's like this.
Oh, I think it was 2019.
I think that was 2019.
Yeah, the 2019 one.
19 or 20, I can't remember.
Yeah. There are a few parallels I saw there because, I mean, Riddler might as well have said, we live in a society, I'm afraid.
By the way, we live in a society.
We do indeed live in a society.
Now we do get a tease of the actual Joker, which if they made the Riddler this level of intense, I am interested to see what they're going to do with the Joker. But I don't want them
to imagine what they.
Do you know who they got to play Joker?
Who?
It was one of the Eternals.
No. We went so long without mentioning that movie.
I know. We were doing so well.
I had almost forgotten that movie existed.
I am actually out. Okay. Wait, hold on. Okay. Well, I mean, nobody thought Heath Ledger'd be a good Joker. I'll give him a chance.
We'll see. As long as he's not the villain in the second movie, I'll give him a chance.
Yeah, so
as long as we don't follow that trend.
I do not. I want the Joker. Well, so my arc for these movies is something like second movie should be, if we're following off of Dark Victory, Long Halloween, or if we're following off of Long Halloween into Dark Victory, correct. Something like the daughter of Falcone is trying to get revenge for the death of her father, or death of her. Yeah, the daughter is trying to get revenge for the death of the father. Yeah, and she's like hiring people. My thought was, she has contracted with a psychiatrist to drive people crazy and get them to go out and cause chaos in the city as a distraction for her. And so we create the Batman Rogues Gallery from Scarecrow Fear Toxin. Like, so we have the psychiatrist who's going to become Joker. Like, what's the guy's name?
Jonathan Crane?
Jonathan Crane, yes, thank you. I couldn't remember. We have Jonathan Crane who's like becoming the Scarecrow because he's exposed to the effects of his own toxin as he's making it, and he's trying to perfect the formula. And all of the B to D list Batman villains are all people who have just been driven crazy by the fear toxin, used as distractions. And then, and Batman's catching all of these guys, but it fills up Arkham Asylum. And then the start of the third movie, after we resolve the plot of the second, the start of the third movie is Prison Break, led by the Joker. And it's basically like the Arkham City game, I think. It's just everyone gets out and it's chaos in the city. And Joker is the one behind it all. In a Joker way, right? In an absolutely insane person kind of way.
Yeah, I could see that.
I would see maybe if we do get a sequel, which funnily enough, I don't mind if we don't get a sequel for this one. It's I feel like Batman Begins was a good kind of between this movie and the Dark Knight level Batman, if that makes any sense. I know we're in weird scalings or whatever, but yeah, this almost seems like it could be put between the middle act of Batman Begins, the rest of it, and then go into the Dark Knight, and it'd be pretty good because it's definitely the only problem I had with Batman Begins was that it went very grounded, but then it gave us Scarecrow, which he's a chemist and he developed this fear toxin, but the fear toxin is very much a comic book thing. It's I mean, it kind of makes sense. I'm fine
it
with
worked
it.
for me.
I love Scarecrow, but
it still felt. I mean, again, I know it was the most grounded Batman we'd gotten at the time, but they still added those fantastical elements where it still felt more superhero, more, more like a comic book than this film did. So,
Yeah.
and I thought it fit. It wasn't too campy, but it also wasn't too realistic. It's like it worked for me. If in that world, it worked for me as did pretty much most of the villains. So, but anyway, before we talk about anything else, was there any, I guess, last minute tidbits you guys wanted to add before we do our official rankings of this movie?
Ooh. Yeah, what was it? I just want them. If there is a sequel, which I don't mind if there's not, but if there is, and Matt Reeves is back, same team, keep this grounded world. It's not that I don't love my comic book villains and the Batman Rogues gallery, but this was a good take, because I think the best part about the Long Halloween for me, since we went over that one, the best part about the Long Halloween and Dark Victory was that transition from the mob controlling the city to the traditional Batman villains controlling the city, and it was done bar the three like really comic booky villains, Poison Ivy, Grundy, and well, no, really just those two. It was done very,
Mr.
I
Freeze
suppose,
a little bit.
and Mr. Freeze. That's right, and
Yeah.
Mr. Freeze. It was done pretty realistically, I suppose. But yeah, it's fine. It's good. It's good. If there's a sequel, let's do it.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think that's fair. For my ranking, first time I watched it, I think I gave it a solid 8. But rewatching it with knowing all the pieces and having those all click, I'm giving it a solid 9. Matt Reeves really knocked his film out of the park, giving us the most grounded version of Batman we've ever seen. So
Fair. I am going to stick at 8 with an asterisk attached to it. So, keeping in mind the comments I made earlier about how this might or might not set up, if it's by itself, it's an 8. If there's a sequel and the sequel like retroactively makes this worse, drop it down to a 7. If there's a sequel and it addresses all of my concerns and makes Batman grow in competence throughout the sequels, this goes up to a 9.
fair enough.
That's where we're at.
I'm gonna stick with an 8. It was the perfect character study film, I'd say, for this version of Batman. There was the action. We haven't talked about the action much, but the action was perfect in the sense that it wasn't, none of the scenes had to be like, okay, there's a scene, let's break it up with an action scene. No. The action very much served the plot, and it was done very well. And technically, amazing film. Yeah, solid 8. The only thing that brings it from a 9 is the fact that it took the one thing from the material, like from those two comic materials that I didn't like, is that the audience can't really solve the mystery. It's just like, okay, yeah, you withheld a decent amount of details, but that's okay. Yeah, solid 8. Very good.
Nice. Well, there you have it. Thank you for listening to the background noise. Well, if you've been listening, assuming you have, we appreciate you. And if not, no worries, because you didn't miss anything. And tune in next week where we discuss the inconceivable classic that is The Princess Bride.
Riddle me this. What happens when you add a star-studded cast with a professional wrestler the size of a house? This isn't a riddle. Just watch next week's episode.